Welcome into the weekend update episode of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. It's Friday, y'all. Getting you ready for the weekend with the next 2 hours of sports talk of local, regional, and national impact. So, looking forward to it. Wade, what's up?
Yes, sir. Very international impact, even with our show.
Even that's a heck of a point. With the opening ceremonies of the Paris Olympics taking place earlier today, we will be discussing some Olympics over the course of the show, early and late, we'll say. So, yeah, looking forward to it. That's going to be a lot of fun over there over the next couple of weeks, and trying to keep up with that and the time differential and everything else, as Wade has alluded to in other shows over the past bit. Set your alarms, etc., etc. And it's I've tried to check out some schedules to see when some stuff is, and it's not always easy. So stay tuned as far as that goes. But yeah, we'll be talking some Olympics here over the next couple of hours. We'll also be talking some professional baseball, both major league and non. In our next segment, actually, we'll be visiting with Nashville Sounds pitcher Chad Patrick, who improved to 9-1 on the year with a victory last night at First Horizon Park against Charlotte. In the second hour of the show, we will be visiting with DERON SNYDER of the GRIO, because he had an article on that website regarding the U.S. men's basketball team heading into Paris. And, we've talked about their performance against South Sudan and their performance against Germany. And, the gap internationally seems to be closing between Team USA and the rest of the world. And while that gap is closing, the gap between some key members on that team and some of their opponents is widening. So we're going to check in with DERON and kind of see what all of that means for Paris and beyond. We'll also be talking some NFL, because it's that time of year, a lot going on in preseason camps, and we'll be catching up on some of that, some college football as well. And again, baseball, we are 5 days away from the trade deadline, and some folks are getting an early start on that. So we'll be touching on some of that as well. A lot to get to. Plenty of excitement here on this Friday. Wade, are you ready for it?
Yeah, big Friday. Going to lead us into a big weekend, as you said. A lot going on. Kind of winding down the month, getting ready for all that August is going to entail. And I don't know, but it's still been kind of yucky all week weather-wise. But hey, we survived. We made it through our show out at First Horizon yesterday, and that means we made it into Friday, and we're ready to rock and roll for the weekend.
And I think survived might be the best way to put that one yesterday. Yeah, if you missed it, go back and check it out. It was fun visiting with Nick Swisher, talking a little bit about Home Run Derby X that'll take place out at First Horizon Park on August 31st. So that was really cool. He brings the juice, does he not, Wade?
He was fired up, and that was even before off air we started talking Ohio State football. And then he kind of took it to a new level. Some of the comments probably best that didn't make it to air, but he brings the juice, and he is a great ambassador and spokesman for that product, because you kind of have to be a little bit of kind of a traveling salesman, kind of a circus type environment to really get the fans and everybody in the community behind an event like a Home Run Derby X. So he did a great job, and you're right. It was fantastic to sit down with the former big league guy.
Absolutely. That was fun. This is going to be fun. Let's go ahead and dive into it with yesterday's results and this weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Before we get today's rundown underway, I want to remind you that Friday's rundown is brought to you by Chip Walters of Exit Realty Bob Lamb and Associates. The Blue Raider Voice also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. So give Chip a call at 615-542-1915 or visit his website at choosechip.net. That's Chip Walters, proud to support youth sports across Middle Tennessee.
Major League Baseball results from yesterday of local interest. In 10 innings, the Braves dropped a 3-2 decision to the Mets and looked pretty horrific in doing so. Nashville Sounds with a 6-5 victory over Charlotte, taking a 2-1 lead through the first 3 games of that series out at First Horizon Park.
As we move into the weekend now, a lot of baseball on the docket, pretty much all baseball on the docket, but we kick things off. Braves at Mets tonight, beginning at 6:10. Game can be seen locally on Valley Sports South. The Dodgers will be at Minute Maid Park to take on the Astros. First pitch there coming your way at 7:10. That game will be shown on Apple TV. Moving into Saturday now, Braves will be at Mets at 3:10, again seen locally. The Houston Astros will host the Dodgers for Game 2 at 6:10. That game will also be seen locally. And then finally, capping our Major League action on Sunday, it'll be the Braves wrapping up versus the Mets at 12:40. Can be seen on Valley Sports Southeast. And then the Dodgers and Astros will get underway not long after that at 1:10. That game can be seen on ESPN Plus as well as MLB.tv. Minor League Baseball schedule today and tomorrow. Charlotte at the Sounds at 6:35. And then Sunday, is this right? We got a night game on Sunday, 6:05 p.m. as the Sounds in Charlotte will close things out this weekend.
Guess they're trying to beat the heat a little bit, maybe. I don't know. That's interesting for a Sunday, getaway day in the minor leagues. But yeah, 6:05 on Sunday.
They'll make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. There we go. That is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by Piggly Wiggly over in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options that are available daily until 6 o'clock. Also, their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. Wade, was it yesterday or was it the day before yesterday that we were talking about the Canadian women's soccer team and their gamesmanship?
Wednesday, we discussed that it was kind of interesting that Canada, of all countries, was kind of
countries
was into a little something.
Well, it seems like they are into more than a little something, and Bev Priestman is not. Canada Soccer announced after their 2-1 win over New Zealand on Thursday that the team's head coach is being suspended for the remainder of the Paris Olympics, and she has been sent home. She is the third member of the Canadian women's soccer contingent to get sent home as a result of some drone surveillance over a New Zealand training session earlier this week. Andy Spence will serve as the team's interim coach through the remainder of the Olympics. Again, they defeated New Zealand 2-1. And Wade, as you have mentioned, as our soccer aficionado / expert, it's not like Canada necessarily needed any help to get past New Zealand. They're expected to be a favorite in this competition anyway. But this is something that apparently has been going on for in soccer.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. And kind of makes you scratch your head. Kind of to your point that we mentioned the other day is this is a talented enough, on the women's side for sure, this is a talented enough team that they could have probably, and still probably will, make a fairly deep run. May not win it all, but will certainly be a favorite to reach the podium, you would think. And the real big question obviously comes out of this is, there's an international federation, the Canadian Soccer Federation. I forget their official name or title, but I mean, there's kind of a singular group that controls all of this. And you wonder now, or at least I do, did this trickle into the senior team? This is the under 23 version of their team that's playing right now. But I mean, does this translate, or on the men's side, I should say, does this translate though to senior level World Cup type matches, Gold Cup type matches? I mean, kind of, does this trickle over into the men's side of things? I mean, there's a lot of questions. Or was this just a one-off, kind of a rogue coach? I mean, that's where we're all kind of scratching our heads at right now.
Well, the answer seems to be that it wasn't a one-off, because there is a Canadian platform reporting that there was there were allegations of opponents' training sessions being filmed by Canada in July of 22, when the Canadian women were trying to qualify for the Women's World Cup. Supposedly they were video in Panama over in Australia. These type of allegations were also surrounding the 21 Olympic tournament, which the Canadian women won. So this is behavior that goes back a minute, apparently.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is the team is talented enough, kind of like we joked about the other day. I mean, Spygate 2.0. I mean, the team is talented enough to probably go out and win the game straight up. But I'm also, you're wondering, how much are you really learning? How much are you really gaining off of this? Short of flying over and saying, oh, New Zealand's best player is, on crutches, and learning maybe some key injury news. I mean, other than a few tactical things, like, what are you really learning that is going to, in your mind, give you a huge edge, especially versus a team like we're talking about with New Zealand here, who has not had great international women's soccer success?
Well, and not only what are you learning that's going to give you a huge edge, but what are you learning that's going to be worth, we talked about the juice being worth the squeeze in another topic earlier this week, that's going to be worth, your head coach getting suspended and other folks getting sent home, from the Olympics. I mean, it just, is it worth it?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, because I don't know that it is. And, Bev Priestman is the one that's really going to take the fall for this. And doing some quick research on her, 38 years old, presumably a very promising managerial career kind of laying at her feet. And man, you're talk about soiling your reputation before you really get things underway. This was a high-profile post, a team, again, that could certainly medal, if not outright win this thing again. And now not only are you not coaching, so you don't have that extra potential for those accolades, but now your reputation is kind of in the trash a little bit.
You get to know their formations, their starting lineup. You also look at who has taken a penalty kick and their set pieces. Okay.
Which is huge, but I mean, again, it's obviously you could not be faced with a penalty kick, or, you could not, the formations can be changed on the fly. And so it's kind of a little bit of just pure out and out, as you said earlier, kind of gamesmanship, really. I don't know that you're really getting that much of a tactical advantage at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's tough for something like this to come out. Not, you kind of hate it a little bit for the Canadian team, just because they kind of get tainted a little bit by having something like this associated with them, whether or not they actually, benefit from it or not. And again, they defeated New Zealand in their first outing, which was pretty well expected, I think. Was it not, Wade?
I mean, you would assume so, for sure. The only thing, obviously, is now potentially, what does this do in terms of a negative impact? Now, the fact you don't have your manager, I mean, you kind of potentially throw all that into flux. And who's that? North Macedonia. I'm watching the screen here. They're coming across the River Seine a moment ago. They discussed this. Mike Tirico is breaking it down when Canada comes across. I mean, they're not glossing over this fact. I mean, their Canadian entire reputation. Argentina was mentioned as well. I mean, they've kind of already got a little kind of stink on them before the Olympics really, really kick off here.
Yeah, they've kind of got the black hat on. And of course, Canada will take on the host team Sunday in group play.
I mean, that could be
a little hostile.
Yeah, I mean, and the French ladies are always solid too. So I mean, that's suddenly almost a must-win game for them. because again, without the services, the juice squeeze scenario plays out perfectly here in my mind, because you were maybe going to get a little bit of a tactical advantage, but now you have a whole lot that's going against you. You don't have your managerial staff. You potentially are looking at, sanctions down the road. I mean, there's a lot that could come out of this negatively for a team that was already good enough to probably maybe make a run at this thing.
Absolutely. While we're talking soccer and voluntarily doing so, which is a feat here, but let's hear it for the Team U.S. women who opened play yesterday with a 3-0 win against Zambia, getting them on the board. There was definitely a Chicago flavor to this U.S. women's team's victory yesterday, because getting them on the board was Trinity Rodman, the daughter of former Chicago Bull Dennis Rodman, and Mallory Pugh Swanson added a pair of goals in that victory, her first multi-goal performance for Team USA. So our national team getting off to a pretty good start. No drones involved that we were aware of.
No drones involved, and the U.S. getting off to a solid start is kind of to be expected. The real controversy with the U.S. was, Alex Morgan was not kind of given that one final hurrah, but it was sweet because, we got Trinity Rodman scoring, and then you got, Dansby's wife, Mallory's out there balling, collecting a couple of goals for the U.S. Yeah, it was Zambia, but it was a good win, and it's good to see the ladies get off to a fast start. And they're coming to Geodis Park in a couple of months right after these Olympics, so we could be looking at a lot of these young ladies here in Nashville fresh off a gold medal.
It's Zambia, but all you can do is play who's in front of you. So, and take care of your business regardless of who's in front of you, and that's what they did yesterday. So, U.S. moves on in group play. Canada continues group play without some key pieces, particularly on the sideline. So we'll see how that goes here over the next few days. Let's go ahead and take a break from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we'll be chatting some Nashville Sounds baseball with a Nashville Sound, specifically pitcher Chad Patrick. So stay with us when we come back from break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone. We produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee's handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Weekend Update continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes as we have Columbia surrounded. Wade's in Pulaski, I'm in Franklin, and we are now joined by highly successful Nashville Sounds right-hander Chad Patrick, who improved to 9-1 on the year with a victory last night over the Charlotte Knights. Chad, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely. We're doing well. Yeah, we can hear you good, man.
You.
We got you. We're good.
Right.
Last night, early struggles, battled through. I mean, sometimes you got to do that, I guess. But again, 9-1 with a following that 6-5 win over Charlotte last night. That 9 victories is tied for the lead in all of AAA baseball, and Nashville improved to 13-2 in games that Chad has started with that victory last night. You know, Chad, what's that mean to you when you literally feel like every time you go out to the mound, you're going to give your team a chance to win?
It's a good feeling knowing that, everyone that is playing behind me, they're playing hard, and they play hard every night. But just, every time you go out there, you want to give your team a chance to win. And, I had a rocky second inning last night, and, went in the dugout and said, you got to hold them there, and ended up doing that. So,
when you can, kind of play with that short memory that in football they talk about defensive backs having and that kind of thing, when you can have a rough inning like that early and then kind of right yourself, how is it just as simple as taking a deep breath, or do you kind of have to get in that iPad and figure out what you were doing wrong in that particular inning and try to shore some things up? How do you address a rough inning like that and flush it quick and move on?
I went in the dugout and just kind of looked at myself, and it had been 2 weeks since I faced a team with the All-Star break. We've had a bunch of rehabbers here. So, I'm just kind of a little rusty, but just getting in the mindset of, you've had rough innings this year before, but you've bounced back from it, and, just going out there and still being a competitor and, holding the team where they're at and just keep doing what you're doing. And, I wasn't making bad pitches. It was just a matter of, execution wise and, having some assertiveness on the mound. I felt like I didn't have that in the first 2 innings and, didn't show my dominance there, and then kind of just said, all right, here we go. I'm just going to do that. And that's what we did.
Chad, I wanted to ask, obviously your win-loss record is fantastic this year, and you've had some success in years prior even. So I'm curious, without having watched you pitch up close this year, and as simple as you want to make this, what's working well for you right now, or what's been working well for you this season that's gotten you off to where you're at right now in your mind?
I think this year is just a lot different than, my first 3 seasons or 2.5 seasons, because, I'm putting the work in. I'm, working with strength coach every day and making sure that I'm in the training room, doing my thing with them. And I think the work ethic has gone up, and, it translates to the field and, with throwing program and working on stuff in bullpens and just being able to, pick your spots and bullpens and just translate that to the game. It's really helped me. So yeah, just finding success on working hard and stuff like that. So
Absolutely. And that was a similar question, but I'm curious, what are you most proud of? Maybe what was one area of emphasis coming into this season that you really wanted to get dialed in? And if you've achieved that, what area was that? Or what's something maybe you're still working to get kind of where you want to be going forward in your mind?
I mean, last year I went to AAA for the last 4 weeks of the season with the A's, and kind of got hit around. Kind of lost the love there for a second, just because the confidence level wasn't there. I think it's just like continuing to have confidence in myself, and just knowing that no matter what happens, this is still a game, and there's different aspects to life. This is just one of them, and just showing up to the field and with a smile on your face, and so I'm just proud of like the way I've handled a lot of different things throughout the year. So yeah,
I love it.
Chad Patrick, right-handed pitcher for the Nashville Sounds, joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. As you mentioned, Chad, pitched in the athletics organization last year, drafted by the Diamondbacks in the 4th round of 2021. Moved around a little bit, and what does that do for a guy when obviously everybody kind of dreams of getting up with the team that drafted them. Rarely does it actually work out that way. I mean, when you have that first trade and that second trade and everything that goes with switching clubs, switching organizations, what's that like for a guy?
yeah. I mean, the first trade definitely messed with my head a little bit. Just the first time I got traded, I got all these friendships in the D-backs organization, and I know that I love those guys and they love me, so it's just like that when that happens, it really messes with you, because you got to go in a new locker room, you got to try to create new relationships, and you don't know any of the coaching staff, so it's just like you got to go in there and make a good first impression again, So mid-season trade was definitely different than the second trade. The second trade was a little bit better, because it kind of felt like I'd just gotten drafted, because I was going to go to the complex for spring training and, meet all the coaching staff there and get to know everyone, to where, I didn't get to do that with the athletics.
What's it been like for you being in the Brewers organization as far as being an up-and-coming pitcher? Or what are, do they stress different things from organization to organization? How does that work, particularly for a starting pitcher like yourself?
I think the best thing about being here so far is, not saying that the other organizations didn't do this, but I think it's more stressed upon here, is like they kind of just let you be yourself, and I think that's the best part about being here, is just like, if you can't be yourself somewhere else, and it's really hard mentally on you if you're trying to change so many different things. You kind of got to go back to like what got you here. Like the basic stuff is like the best stuff. More complicated things get, that's when you start getting these things in your head, and you might not be finding success here and there, and it's coming in waves, this and that. So I think it just matters on being yourself, and that's stressed a lot here.
That's interesting that you say that, because as Wade and I have had these conversations with other Nashville Sounds players, that seems to kind of be a common thread, that they do kind of let you be you. And from the way other folks have said that, and kind of from the way you said it, that's not necessarily the case in every organization.
No, it's not. No, it's not for sure. I mean, It just depends on who you're with and, the types of conversations you have with your coaches and stuff. So,
Yeah. For you, how does that B and you play out? Is that more, with your pitch mix and that kind of thing? Is that more with your preparation? How does that show up necessarily?
I think it starts with, a conversation of what I think and then what our pitching coach, Pat McGuff, has to say. Um, I if you're not having those types of conversations and you don't feel comfortable having them, more so of like being told what to do instead of like, trying to stick up for yourself and like say, hey, like I really like this, and he says I really like that too. Like that's good. That means you're on the
Mhm.
same page. But obviously, I'm open to opinion as everyone else is in this game. So I think that they just really understand, that type of stuff.
Chad, I wanted to ask you, we mentioned obviously you've gotten off to a fantastic start, been pitching very well this season. But I wanted to ask you, let's go little more serious on this note. What can you tell us about the Glizzy Fund and your involvement with celebrating National Hot Dog Day? Because I just watched a video before we went on air, and it looks like you're the certified Glizzy King for the Sounds these days. Is that fair?
Uh, it started off as a joke, and then it just became a little bit more serious for the guys. I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously not the healthiest choice, but it's pretty cool for the guys to be on board with me and knowing that I'm not alone.
Hey, so, I
So,
mean, you've got a certified hot dog roller in your locker or in the clubhouse. I mean, first of all, that thing is impressive as you watch the video, but I'm curious, what's the upkeep on that? Do you got to do a lot of cleaning or maintenance, or do you just kind of let it ride every day? How does that work?
I usually try to clean it before the homestand gets started. That way, you get all the nasty juices down there and that it collects and stuff. So, you just got to keep it maintained and, make a weekly trip to the grocery store to grab some hot dogs. Showed up yesterday. I did not have to go to the grocery store this week. Taylor Clark went to Costco and got some Costco dogs. So
There you go. There you
yeah,
go. Everybody else is kind of embracing it and pitching in so that you don't have to carry all of that. That's
That's
awesome.
teamwork.
That's great teamwork
yeah,
right there.
great,
Absolutely.
great teamwork on some glizzies.
Chad Patrick of the Nashville Sounds joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Chad, you're an Indiana native, pitched at Purdue Northwest, which I was not familiar with until I was looking at your bio here, to be honest. But are you the only Purdue University Northwest alumnus playing pro ball?
Um, there's another guy, Ray Hilbrick, who's playing independently, I believe. But as far as like um, minor leagues goes, I mean, I believe so. There was another guy named Colin Willis. Before the schools combined, he went Purdue Westville, I think, and then they combined schools and called it Purdue Northwest. But yeah, I don't think anyone from there besides me and Colin have played in the minors for sure.
Not necessarily a hotbed. I mean, what do you got to do to get seen when you are pitching at Purdue Northwest?
Yeah, my journey was kind of cool. I wasn't highly recruited out of high school, and um, my grades weren't all that good, so it made a little bit of sense. But went to college my freshman year, played summer ball in a close place near home. Cut grass for that summer. Had a scout day. I got invited to, and then the following summer went and played in Traverse City, Michigan, and they had another type of scouting type of thing. And basically from that day forward, I had scouts at every one of my games for Purdue Northwest. So I just think it takes, being yourself and getting your name out there. And, I had a lot of help from my head coach, Dave Griffin, who was in the Detroit Tigers org for a while back when he played. So, yeah, I mean, it was a cool journey, and, I'm beyond thankful that I've gotten this far.
You mentioned that your outing last night was the first time in almost 2 weeks that you had been on the mound between the All-Star break and some rehabs coming down and that kind of thing. How tough is it to deal with that, just kind of the not necessarily knowing when you're going out there?
It plays around a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's not up to you, Big league's got to be healthy, so they got to get their work in too. So you just kind of gotta play the cards you're dealt, and it shows that you're adjustable, you're coachable, stuff like that. So.
At the same time, I would imagine it kind of helps some of you younger guys to get to watch a Devin Williams or some of the other veterans, the major league veterans that you've seen come in here on rehab assignments, to get to watch them go about their business and that kind of thing, and maybe pick their brains a little bit. How much of a resource are those guys for y'all when they come through here?
Yeah, those guys, they've been through it. Definitely, it takes opening your mouth to ask those questions, instead of being, afraid to. But yeah, just kind of like sit around, you watch them, the way they work, and it motivates you as well. And you get to know a guy, and that's the best part about it. We're all human, and nobody's a robot here.
That's an interesting point that you made, Chad, that you got to be willing to open your mouth, because I would imagine in a lot of those situations, it's like, I don't want to bother that guy because he's a former rookie of the year. He's a former Cy Young candidate, that kind of thing. He doesn't want to talk to me, but it takes a lot for you. And I don't mean you specifically necessarily, but in y'all situation, to necessarily go up and, strike up a dialogue with some of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, especially, they're older, been through it. Definitely, don't want to rub a guy the wrong way, or, like you said, maybe he doesn't really want to talk to you, but I feel like at the end of the day, we're all teammates in one way or another. And, yeah, I mean, those guys are here, and, if you want to know something, you just got to ask.
Great. Chad Patrick of the Nashville Sounds joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Chad, we appreciate your time, man. Congratulations and continued success. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you, guys. You guys have a good day. Thanks for having me on here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chad.
When we continue on Main Street Sports Today after this break from the Lee Company Studios, we'll be talking a little bit more baseball as we check in on the Braves and on some other major league doings. So stay with us when we come back.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Warrior. When it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
July 26, 2011, perhaps one of the worst calls in Major League Baseball history, resulted in a 4-3 Braves win over visiting Pittsburgh in 19 innings. Julio Lugo tries to score on a Scott Proctor ground ball to Pedro Alvarez, whose throw to catcher Michael McHenry was in plenty of time for the ex-Blue Raider backstop to sweep tag Lugo, twice actually. However, plate umpire Jerry Meals inexplicably called Lugo safe with a winning run. The Pirates lodged a formal complaint, and both Meals and MLB Vice President Joe Torre acknowledged the call was incorrect, but the outcome was not reversed. It was the first of an 11-game skid for the Pirates, who fell out of contention in the National League Central Division as a result of the disheartening loss that was this day in Braves history. Wade, I don't know if you remember this, but I was actually watching the game at the time, and all you could do was laugh. I mean, it was sort of like the Jim Joyce, Anibal Sanchez perfect game situation. I mean, you just saw it, and it's like, how does that happen? And it just happened. I mean, it's tough. The jokes were that, clearly Meals was ready to get out of there after 19 innings, and so he just decided to get the ball game over with. You hate to think that, but there's nothing else that really makes sense. And I referenced the wrong pitcher in that Jim Joyce reference. That was Armando Galarraga, not Anibal Sanchez, with that perfect game with the Tigers. That wasn't. But I mean, those are the two calls that come to mind for me when I think of worst calls that I've actually seen, and it was awful.
Yeah, and I'm watching the clip, and Clint Hurdle. I mean, it's the end of the game, so you might as well get your money's worth. But yeah, he is fit to be tied, as they say.
Yeah. Clint Hurdle got all of his, and when you're right, I mean, it's a little bit easier to go out there and just let it hang. But yeah, man, that was.
I mean, and that's up there. Eric Gregg behind the plate, Braves and Marlins from back in the day too. I mean.
Yeah,
but that's over the course of an entire game, so you maybe can make the case that's even worse potentially.
I mean, when it's drawn out like that and you got to continue to watch it, yeah, that's tough. I mean, this was a one-time bang bang kind of thing, but I mean,
they're showing like 7 replays on this, and yeah, I mean, it gets worse and worse every time you watch it.
And Lugo is not safe in a single one of them. Yeah. Those were the good old days for the Braves back when they could score runs, because last night they couldn't. 3-2 loss in 10 innings last night to the Mets. Ramon Laureano thinking that a squeeze bunt is on when apparently it wasn't. So you go from a runner at third and nobody out to the bottom of the 10th, and then Laureano in right field overruns a fly ball by Jeff McNeil that winds up falling to score the winning run. I don't know. I've not seen transactions yet. Is Ramon Laureano still on the Braves roster? I don't know. But last night was a tough one for him.
Yeah, and I mean, that was one that obviously was Sale going, kind of like we've seen a start or two earlier this year. I mean, you would assume that your guy is going, and it's like, guys, I don't need much. I mean, you just got to give me a little something. I'm not asking for 10 runs. I'm not even asking for 5 runs. I mean, just give me a couple because I can't be perfect every single night.
Yeah. I'll tell you how bad it was. It's bad enough that, and I'm looking for it, Braves manager calls out Ramon Laureano for unacceptable base running mistake. That never happens. I mean, Snit is a true Bobby Cox disciple in that he rarely throws guys under the bus. But again, they got him to third with a sacrifice bunt. He broke early on what he thought was a squeeze. They pitched out and got him. And Snitker says, I don't know what that was. Quite honestly, you'll have to ask him. I didn't have anything on. We normally don't bunt in that situation, but I was trying to score a run. We had 2 pretty good hitters coming up. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, that's never good when the manager says, you're going to have to ask him because I don't know what was. We did everything right. It sounds like he did nothing right.
Yeah. And it's it's tough for a team that's struggling. Again, they fell to 1-5 coming out of the All-Star break with that loss. Play the Mets again tonight. 6:10 start. You've got Charlie Morton going. Kodai Senga, one of the top rookie pitchers in the league last year, making his first start of the season after some shoulder and tricep issues kept him off the mound. So the Braves will be trying to even that series up. And, this is a pretty critical series for the Braves as they try to hang on to that top spot in the National League wild card right now, because the Mets are starting to kind of breathe down their necks a little bit. In fact, the Mets are a half game back in the wild card. So suddenly the cheese is getting pretty binding for Atlanta right here. I mean, obviously neither of these guys are going to catch the Phillies, but The Braves are in that first wild card spot. The Mets are a half game back, and the Padres right behind them. So it's tightening up. St. Louis, Arizona, Pittsburgh, all within 2 games of a wild card berth as well. So
Yeah, and as a completely neutral observer, this wild card chase could be fun to watch. I mean, obviously, everybody's wondering kind of, do the Pirates go for it? The real, obviously, after the trade deadline will be really kind of interesting to watch, because we'll get a real firm idea of where the teams kind of internally put themselves, right? And we'll
yeah,
see some teams every year. It feels like you see a team, oh, well, they're so close, why did they not make a move? Or they made a move, they're not really that close, why did they make that move? And so after this deadline, it feels like that's when and that's what makes the MLB trade deadline probably the best in all of sports. Maybe the NBA a close second, but other than that, it's like, why? That's where we really get a firm kind of establishment of where everybody views themselves, and then the races really start to heat up.
absolutely. Big series in Minute Maid Park this weekend, as the Astros have the banged up Dodgers visiting for what, 3 this weekend? Is it 3 or 4?
I believe it's 3. And yeah, they could use some wins. The battle of the 2 wounded squads here. Houston would desperately like to win a couple of these versus the Dodgers. And I haven't seen the pitching matchups yet, but it could be a fun series if Houston is able to win a couple. As kind of bad as those 2 losses to the A's kind of stunk, now all of a sudden you might come out of this saying, oh, man, all is right kind of with the world a little bit.
Well, you got Valdez going today against Gavin Stone. Stone is 9-3 with a 3.19 ERA. Framber Valdez 8-5 with a 3.63. So that's a solid pitching matchup right there. You've got Ronel Blanco going tomorrow for the Astros. Justin Robleski for the Dodgers. Another of their many pitchers, just because they've gotten so deep with the injuries that they've incurred. On Sunday, it is River Ryan for the Dodgers, Spencer Arrighetti for the Astros. So, I mean, you guys got a chance to, again, even it's the Dodgers, and they are really kind of making a mockery of the West, but it feels like you guys can do some damage this weekend.
Yeah, this will be a fun series. Obviously, in a crazy parallel universe, this is, a hypothetical World Series matchup if the things felt just right. More so on the Houston end of things. And this is kind of maybe, this could be a series where you go in and you see what happens, and maybe that tells you one way or the other, if you're Dana Brown and part of the brass there for Houston, if you decide to make a move or if you don't decide to make a move, because can we compete against a team that we might see in the postseason or in the World Series? And this is kind of the timing aspect of this series is what I find perhaps the most interesting.
And it's really odd as we talk about the Dodgers and how beat up and banged up they have been, particularly in their pitching. They designated veteran James Paxton for assignment last week. They traded Paxton to Boston earlier today. Paxton made 18 starts, had a 4.43 ERA. Now, he was with Boston last year, but it's interesting that they would make that move with him, again, as banged up as they've been. Now, they got Tyler Glasnow and Clayton Kershaw back earlier this week, and so they had to have a roster spot. But I'm kind of fascinated with the fact that they chose to keep some of these young guys like a Robleski or a Ryan. But also, when you look at where they are, they've got a little bit of a cushion to work with.
Yeah, so they can kind of tinker. They got a little more room for error, as you said, and they can kind of tinker and get a little different feel. And if it doesn't work out, then obviously you can try a different avenue. Kind of with that, that's that luxury they have at the moment.
7.5 up in the West, 62-42. They hold the number 2 spot overall in the National League behind the Phillies. So They're feeling pretty good about themselves, and clearly good enough to trade a veteran like a James Paxton. Again, trade deadline coming up. Some folks getting out ahead of it. Seattle picking up Tampa Bay All-Star outfielder Randy Arozarena last night, sending a couple of minor leaguers to Tampa Bay, along with the classic player to be named later. So I guess Houston kind of sparked Seattle to make a move. Now, Arozarena hasn't been typical Randy Arozarena this season, hitting .211 with 15 home runs. But, you know, I don't want to say a change of environment would have an impact, but, you know, you feel like some of these guys are going to snap out of it at some point, and maybe he is that.
Yeah, and talk about a change of environment, you know, going from one side of the country to the other. Trade in the red snapper for a little sushi. Maybe that'll do him. That'll just be what the doctor ordered.
Not to be overlooked, Arozarena has 2 full years of contract after this, of control after this season, or Seattle has 2 full years of control of Arozarena after this season. He becomes a free agent at the end of the 26th season. Can't think that didn't have an impact on this move. So
yeah, and we talked about it with Screwball a little bit too. You know, sometimes a player comes along or a team is in a certain situation where you can make a move, and yeah, it really could potentially be for this year, but it also could kind of be strategically, you know, kind of a small insurance policy. Hey, if it doesn't work out, it's not a true rental, which sometimes you obviously do see, where you know the guy's not coming back at the end of the season no matter what. But yeah, sometimes that's the part that's always fascinating to me. It's kind of trying to decipher or read the tea leaves, if you will, of where the managerial and the front office staff for these teams are when they make some of these moves.
Absolutely. Little bit of an odd move here, as Philadelphia and Baltimore, and we've talked about Philadelphia being the best team in the National League right now, and Baltimore is certainly vying for that status in the American League, but those two made a trade last night as Baltimore sends outfielder Austin Hayes to the Phillies, getting back reliever Sir Anthony Dominguez and pitcher Christian Pache. I'm sorry, outfielder Christian Pache. That's former Brave, former A, and now former Philly Christian Pache going to Baltimore. Hayes is a former All-Star. He was an All-Star last year, kind of tailed off a little bit this season. In 63 games, he's hitting .255 with 3 home runs and 13 doubles. Plays all 3 outfield positions, gives Philly some flexibility as far as that goes. And again, he is under team control until the end of the 2025 season. I think this was more of a Hayes for Dominguez move. Dominguez, 2-pitch reliever, slider, fastball, 4.75 ERA, 3.33 strikeout to walk ratio. So, and opponents average exit velo of 86.8. So, he adds to the bullpen situation there in Baltimore. And again, I'm not sure where Pache fits in, probably Norfolk, but it'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that development. So the trades are starting to heat up. We'll probably have a few more to talk to you about Monday when we come back from the weekend. So keep your ears up for that. Hour number 1 of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, winds down. When we return to the Lee Company studio, we will edge into some NFL preseason talk, so stay tuned after the break.
Live under the lights. A city of performers. Putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Sheer terror as we begin hour number two, as we briefly lost Mo, but you are watching Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by our friends at TOA of Columbia. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle, and this is hour number two of the program. Mo will be back with us here in just a matter of moments, but a jam-packed first hour already in the books, and we'll be ready to get hour number two cranked up. We've got NFL preseason on the docket. As we mentioned in the first hour, we will be discussing Team USA and specifically Team USA basketball team as they get underway coming up in our next segment. And then we'll close with our grab bag. So as Mo returns, a jam-packed hour number two officially underway.
Thank you, Wade. Appreciate you taking the reins there for a second. Yeah, NFL preseason, a lot to talk about, obviously, as training camps are cranking up across the league. And interesting article on CBSSports.com. Is Will Levis the next Josh Allen? Titans second-year QB driven to join ranks of NFL elite. Now, I guess my question with that headline and with the premise of this story by former Jacksonville Jaguars beat writer Pete Prisco of the Florida Times-Union, now with CBS Sports again. But are we convinced, first of all, that Josh Allen is the NFL's elite?
In my mind, yes. Sounds like maybe no for you, though.
I It's not a hard no. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure just yet. He's done a lot of things well, during the regular season, but when we've gotten to postseason play, it's not necessarily translated. So, I mean, if we are questioning whether or not Lamar Jackson is elite, then I think we probably got to ask that question about Josh Allen at this point. But all of that aside, though, it's interesting to me that the Tennessee Titans second-year quarterback is getting that kind of love on a national level so early in his career, because we've not seen that a lot for a player from this franchise, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and we've talked many times on this show, and the cool thing, as you just said, about Levis, and the article, is interesting. Levis listed at 6'4", 229. Allen listed at 6'5", 237. Both got rocket arms. Allen probably even more so than Levis. Both are relatively light on their feet. Both can get airborne, as we saw at times last year with Levis. But the big thing with Levis is and this is where it could be a great thing. It could obviously be a horrible thing, but he is kind of that ultimate high variance guy. And the Titans have kind of over the years trotted out some guys, kind of like Mariota, who is not a high variance guy. And what I mean by that is he may not lose you many games. He may win you a few games, but you're not going to have his ceiling is not going to be elite, I don't think. Whereas Levis, I do think the ceiling is elite. Now, the floor is obviously bust. And kind of Josh Allen was in that mold, especially, when he came into the league out of Wyoming. Everybody's scratching their heads wondering about this guy. And same deal. He's got that elite ceiling, and it seems like it's certainly panned out in that direction. But there was the bust potential versus a guy like Mariota, who maybe not quite elite ceiling, but probably also not a bust floor. And as we've seen, he's kind of settled into a nice little prolonged tenure in the NFL. And he's just kind of the one example that came to mind locally here. But so the potential is there for Will Levis for sure, but also in the other direction, it could flame out in spectacular fashion. But I mean, that's kind of where you have to go, and it reflects where the coaching direction is also going. We don't know what Callahan is going to do. The ceiling, in my opinion, is higher than what Vrabel potentially could have done. But on average, I think Vrabel's career trajectory is going to be a lot more stable, a lot more secure. He's going to win you some games you're not supposed to win. But because there's not that flashy, razzle-dazzle type offense, as we've seen, they're going to lose some games that they're probably not supposed to lose just because they don't score enough points. And Callahan, for as many games as maybe they win that they shouldn't win, they could obviously get blown out in some games this year too. So, I mean, it's kind of a high variance strategy, which is where you got to go if your goal is to win it all. And it seems like the Titans front office has made clear that's kind of their goal. And kind of just 8-8 or 9-8 is not really going to cut it, it seems like, anymore. So you're looking at 4 wins, or you're looking at maybe 13 wins potentially with this strategy that it seems they're deploying.
Mariota and Vrabel are safer.
100%.
Yeah. Then
we've seen owners famously across all sports where, and I started watching Clipped last night on FX about the Donald Sterling and the Clippers. And after one episode, it is unreal already. But in the show, I mean, it's like certain owners are kind of cool with not necessarily rocking the boat. They just want a nice, safe, stable team. Don't really win a lot of games, but also don't really lose a lot of games either.
That's not real entertaining in the grand scheme of things. Maybe some folks enjoy roller coasters, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And so that's why I'm so fascinated by the Levis Callahan experiment, is because, again, me personally, I'm not going to be really upset if it flames out in spectacular fashion this year, because that's what the ticket that you bought to the roller coaster. I mean, they could win 12 or 13 games, but they could also only win 3 or 4, and that just kind of comes with that strategy that it seems that team and that franchise is kind of on board with right now.
High risk, high reward. Absolutely.
100%.
This article, though, apparently Prisco was in town for a couple of days because he's got some detail from a couple of practices, and apparently Levis took a trip not long before coming back to preseason camp to Italy and was really working hard to get some workouts in while he was over there. In fact, got chased off of a local soccer field by the local law enforcement, but the underlying theme here is that if it doesn't work out for Will Levis, it won't be for a lack of work. So, and that's good to hear. When people are putting in the work and you feel like if they're putting in the work, they can be successful. Titans were 3-6 last year under Will Levis, or in Will Levis's 9 starts, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. But yeah, a huge comparison here for Prisco between Levis and Josh Allen, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, obviously, with everything that they've put around him this season, to see if he is, QB1. I think, as we've talked to various folks, it feels like whatever else happens with this team this year, you will know that by the end of this season, whether he is the guy to go forward with or whether they've got to try to find one in next year's draft. So
yeah, that's refreshing to see in and of itself, right? Feels like we've seen these guys that randomly get drafted in weird spots or in weird situations, and you never know kind of what they're made of. And at least if you say, hey, here's our guy, and you're comfortable with the results, good or bad, that to me is, that's just a good business strategy, in my opinion, because if it doesn't work out, you know where to move on from, right?
Right. If you were on social media yesterday and you are a sports fan, you probably saw the clips of Kermit the Frog at the Las Vegas Raiders preseason practice, as they were poking fun at Patrick Mahomes. Now, it feels like poking fun at Patrick Mahomes, particularly if you are another AFC West team, would be a little foolhardy. But the Raiders did win the last time those two teams met, 20-14 last Christmas, scoring a couple of defensive touchdowns in that victory. Now, Kansas City bounced back and won Super Bowl. What is that?
They won the Super Bowl.
47, 40. Yeah,
I can't do that.
My Roman numerals don't go that high. But that was Oakland's first win. Las Vegas. Las Vegas is 2-10 against Kansas City with Mahomes at quarterback. So, they won the most recent one, but I just don't know that that's a bear you want to poke. Kansas City has won the last 8 AFC West championships. Again, Kansas City is 10-2 against the Raiders. Mahomes, it's still early in the year. Stuff like that happens. It'll get handled when it gets handled.
And, the other thing too, it's the Raiders. We talked about, ownership and expectations of franchises, and that's pretty low bar historically for Oakland, at least in the last 30 years, it seems like. But on the other hand, man, you got to come a little more original than that. Every single person on the planet knows the man sounds like Kermit the Frog. You gotta come up with something more original if you're going to take a swing at the king like that. That's the most low hanging fruit. So I give them an F, not only for the history of the series, but also an F for the originality there.
Yeah, and I've not seen The Wire, but as you mentioned, I'm kind of reminded, if you come at the king, you best not miss.
Marlowe, where you at?
More quarterback talk. Russell Wilson missed practice for the second straight day. He's got a calf situation going, apparently. And Justin Fields not overly impressive in Wilson's stead at Latrobe, Pennsylvania. That's going to be an interesting dynamic to keep an eye on, I think, between Wilson and Fields and the Steelers and that quarterback situation. Did not realize until just now, though, that Van Jefferson, former Ravenwood standout, is in Pittsburgh. Caught a touchdown pass from Fields in yesterday's work. But you just feel like the stability of Tomlin and the stability of Wilson with a chip on his shoulder coming out of the Denver situation is really going to be something that works out for them. It's now the offside of that is that's a really tough division.
I mean, yeah, you could easily make the argument that's the toughest division. And then for all the stability that Tomlin does bring, and we just talked about the crazy situation the Titans could be in, high risk, high reward. What you kind of don't want to end up is in a spot 8 games into the season, and you're maybe still having this argument over who should be your quarterback. If Russ plays bleh, I mean, there's going to be the calls. He's going to have to seemingly play really well, especially for a fan base like that, to really kind of quiet everybody. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of a weird, tumultuous season, it seems like, at that position.
That's a good point. That's a good point, especially, again, with that fan base, which is not easily satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Fields, what we saw a couple weeks ago, he's returning kicks. Maybe he just returns like 5 kicks for touchdowns and becomes so beloved in that role that maybe that quiets the haters. But I don't know that is gonna play out. I'm forecasting kind of some rocky road this season for a super stable organization and coaching staff. I think it'll be pretty bumpy.
Atlanta's Kirk Cousins will not play in their preseason games as he continues to come back from an Achilles injury. Cousins wants to play, but says his request fell on deaf ears. So they want to make sure that Cousins is healthy when the games count, apparently. 35 years old. He'll be 36 on August 19th. Only recently fully cleared for all football activities. Now he's going to practice. He'll be taking modified reps during training camp, but he's not going to play. Which means that Michael Penix Jr. and Taylor Heineke are getting your reps at the top of the QB depth chart. Michael Penix Jr., the number 8 pick overall. Taylor Heineke, who has provided some moments throughout his career, whether it be in Washington or in Atlanta, has, played well enough to be a NFL starter. So those guys are splitting, and I don't know if you can, and I don't know how that works. I mean, because as you mentioned, the longer you go in Pittsburgh between Wilson and Fields, neither of them necessarily distinguishing themselves, the worse potentially that situation gets. It might be a lot of the same with Penix and Heineke. You really need one of those guys to kind of push themselves forward pretty quickly, I would think.
You would think, and talk about for as rough as that franchise has had it, and as quick as the fans, as little confidence as they've inspired in their fan base, better way to put it, I suppose, over life. Imagine they start out 0-2, 0-3, and Cousins, who's been prone to lay some duds, imagine he starts laying some duds, and then you don't know who the backup is. I mean,
right.
We've gone from the Titans with a clear-cut number 1, And then we've kind of whittled our way down to, man, imagine if Cousins comes out and drops a couple of eggs to start the season. Where do you turn then? Because it sounds like after reading this, they're not really sure who they turn to as the backup at this moment.
And that could get real ugly real quick in the ATL. Let's take a break from the Lee Company studios here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll be joined by DERON SNYDER of the GRIO, talking a little Team USA hoops. Stay tuned.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, and we are joined now by DERON SNYDER, columnist for the GRIO. And I asked DERON to come on with us because he had a what I thought was a fascinating article yesterday on the GRIO's website regarding our United States men's national basketball team heading into Paris. Obviously, Wade and I have talked about the South Sudan debacle and the game against Germany earlier this week as they've gotten ready for Paris. And, you know, the gap seems to be closing. But DERON really kind of takes a little nuanced look at this whole situation. Global men's hoops on the come up, with U.S. Olympic geezers on the way out. And DERON, appreciate you taking some time with us here on this Friday. First of all, welcome to the show. Mark, I can't hear DERON. Still. Mark, do we have DERON?
He appears to be having some audio difficulties.
Okay. So that's it's on his end. All right. What do you suggest? Should he back out and come back? Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we can get those difficulties addressed, but kind of the point of the article, and again, I really want DERON to get into that, but some of these guys that we are seeing going to Paris this week are some of the guys that we've seen going to the Olympics for a pretty good while. And so, I mean, it'd be realistic to think that age is catching up with them. And, some of these younger teams might be able to give them some issues just with their youth, even if they're not as skilled necessarily. So it's going to be interesting, and maybe nail biters are going to be the norm rather than the exception for Team USA as we go through this. Mark, do we have Darren? Wade, do we have you? You're on. I know you're on mute, Wade, because I can see the icon.
We're working on
There we
Darren.
go. There we go. Yeah. We work.
But yeah, I mean, kind of just to fill in while we're waiting here. I mean, we've discussed it, but I mean, this is kind of the last hurrah for many guys, you would assume. I mean, I suppose LeBron could come back in his 40s. The most mind-blowing of all is Steph Curry, and this was a wild interview they just had on NBC during the opening ceremonies. Asia Wilson's playing in her second Olympics. Steph Curry is making his Olympic debut.
How is that?
And, it's fascinating. And I was kind of digging on that because in 2012, he was left off kind of right on the cusp. You weren't sure, probably one of those questionable decisions on whether or not he should have been on. And then in 2016 was after they famously blew the lead to the Cavaliers, and it was kind of his own choosing at that time that he just wanted to focus on getting ready for the next season, kind of just taking a step back and resting. And then obviously there was a whole lot of stuff going on with everybody in 2020, which bled into 21 when they finally played them. And so, yeah, it was a fun interview as they had Asia kind of strutting her stuff a little bit with her Olympic glasses on, and Steph is kind of off to the side, and she's getting the fanfare, and he's like, well, yeah, it's my first go around. But so you've got him at 36, and then Durant is 35. So I mean, they've got three guys, and I'm referencing Darren's article here. I mean, three of your headliners are in your late 30s and would be either right around 40 or beyond 40 by the next time we roll around in this thing.
Yeah. And the question kind of becomes at that point, I think, Wade, as you talk about the potential for LeBron to come back, why do you want to?
Yeah, and I mean, it feels like kind of his for sure swan song. I mean, there was even some consternation over whether he should be one of the flag bearers. You got him and Coco Gauff, and the question, some had posed online was, should he be the flag bearer? I mean, he is kind of the face of Team USA at large across all sports in many regards, but also you could maybe make the case that some of your younger up and coming folks should maybe have that honor, as we saw obviously with Coco being the female delegate there. But this feels like it's for sure his swan song. And as we've seen in some of these exhibition games, it also feels like, I'm not saying he held anything back in the regular season or even in their short postseason run, but it seems like Team USA is funneling through LeBron at the international stage and is going to play through him. It certainly feels like, whether it's going to be his decision or not, that this is kind of maybe the final go around.
Again, we talked about their game against Germany. He scored their last 11 points in that 4-point win over them. It does feel like he's kind of the straw that stirs their drink heading into Paris, and would appear to be the plan going forward. But again, on the world stage, it feels like the gap has closed, and Steve Kerr even spoke to that in this article by Darren. It's remarkable to see the talent in front of me as I'm addressing this team, but a big part of the message is this is not 92. Those days are long gone. We have our hands full despite the amazing roster we have. FIBA is tough. There's a lot of talent out there. And, we kind of see it every night in the NBA. And while Team USA isn't going to face all of those folks at one time, they're going to face a few of those folks and enough talent around them that, 101, 100, 92, 88, that might again be the norm rather than the exception here over the next little bit.
Absolutely. And it's wild to think about that, 92, you trot out the dream team and you just name your score, obviously. And then we kind of enjoyed a luxury as we're getting ready to bring Darren hopefully back in. You enjoyed a luxury for a couple of years where you didn't necessarily even have to send your best and we're still getting it done. Now we've kind of got to the point where you pretty much have to send your big dogs. And even still, the games, because the rest of the world is catching up, the games are now getting even closer. You're having to go out and battle, even though you're sending your best now.
Absolutely. Darren SNYDER of the GRIO joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Darren, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is this better?
That's much better. Yeah, we appreciate your resilience and your determination to get on with us, man, because we certainly wanted to talk to you about this article that you've got up on the GRIO website on Team USA. It's a different look for this team going into these Olympics than it has been in years past.
Well, LeBron is a link here because he played on the 04 team, and that's the only team with NBA players that did not win a gold, right? So here he is on presumably his last Olympics team. He'll be 43 when it's when it's in Los Angeles. So I don't think he'll be on the team, but I mean, I guess it's possible. But he could become the first NBA player to have 2 non-gold medals from the Olympics, which would be something to add to his list of accomplishments. I mean, you got to favor the United States just on the sheer talent alone. But the thing with the Olympics is, with the world catching up, it's not so much that we still don't have the best, say, 12 players, but we might not have the best team, because a lot of these teams, they play together. They're really teams. And whereas we always send an all-star team, which is different from a team. So, yeah, the talent has always been, except for 04, good enough for the NBA players. But now there's so much NBA talent around the world that I wouldn't bet against the United States, but definitely we should get some more competition. South Sudan giving us a run, I know it didn't count, but that would never happen, in 92 or, 90 in the 90s period. So I think it'll be interesting because now, at first when the NBA players came in, all these guys were just like awestruck. Now they're like, yeah, this is my chance. This is my chance to show the world what I got. And they're not scared. So it'll be very interesting to see these teams that are more cohesive. They're used to playing under FIBA rules. Our guys play under FIBA rules like every 3 years. The games are shorter. It's a 40-minute game as opposed to a 48-minute game. Steve Kerr was mentioning that recently, saying, NBA guys are used to like maybe getting their rhythm after the first quarter or whatever. Here, you got less time to do that. So everything is working for more competitive games. Whether that means we don't win the gold, I'm not saying that, but it's definitely closer.
Yeah, and Darren, we talked about that. Darren, we talked about that gap kind of closing, and you make a great point. Especially some of these other nations that field pretty competitive leagues in their own right. Obviously, the NBA is still the top league in the world, but some of these other leagues, looking at you, Spain, or looking at some other countries, predominantly in Europe, it seems like that team aspect, that you made a great point. It seems like that has a real potential bleed over effect. And instead of the all-star component, it's really just a pure team that's rolling out there, which has got to count for something, right?
Yeah, because, in basketball all the time, the teams that play together have a chance of beating teams that might have more talented players individually but the sum doesn't equal, the parts. So you have teams that are used to playing with each other, and you have our guys that usually in All-Star games they don't even play hard, but in the Olympics we've done well, and it's unfortunate that we have it's gold or bust with the U.S. men's Olympics team. Anything other than gold is a failure, which isn't quite fair, although we kind of understand it, but it's not quite fair. I'm sure that winning the bronze in 04 was heartbreaking to those guys. They couldn't even really celebrate winning the bronze medal because it must have felt like such a disappointment. And we feel embarrassed that we don't win the gold. But I expect us to have to be challenged. I expect us to be challenged. And one of the teams that can do it has the same problem that we have. Like Canada has a lot of NBA players, but it's just like us. They're all stars thrown together for this tournament. But teams that play together more regularly, Spain, Australia, Germany, they're the ones that can give us a good run. We're not looking for blowouts like with the Dream Team or even some of the teams after them, 20 points just cruising to the end. What we've seen in the scrimmages at least is we've had some nail biters. It's dangerous to think you can just flip the switch once the games count for real. I think that might be part of what's at play. But also these guys, they got to get used to playing as a team. It's a team sport. So I think it's still interesting to see if we'll be able to win a 5th consecutive gold medal and avoid having the second team of NBA players not win the gold medal.
DERON SNYDER of the GRIO joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. DERON, you kind of got into it a little just now, but if not the U.S. for gold, and that's kind of the standard that they've set for themselves, I guess, is that's part of the reason that we've got that gold or bust approach to them, I think. But if it's not Team USA winning the whole thing, who do you feel like does?
Well, I did mention, Canada has a lot of talent. They've got several NBA players. Australia, Germany, France has Big Vic. It could be someone from one of those groups. All it takes is, for Team USA to have a bad shooting night, and these other teams to be hot, playing well. We won the gold last time, even though we took an L against France on the way to gold. So, we might take an L. We could take an L and still win gold. But I think those teams in particular would be the ones to look out for.
And DERON, you mentioned France, and my ears kind of perked up. I don't know how much of a home court advantage or bump they would potentially get, but what's really crazy for me, and I will be glued to watch this, you got Wemby and Rudy Gobert in one of the wildest that's just like a Twin Towers on steroids type situation, right? I mean, just think about the front court and what potential matchups you can exploit, or how do you even attack those two guys with the defensive presence they bring?
Yeah, well, they got to play defense too. So we've seen what can happen when you get Gobert out on the perimeter. But bigs are going to make it hard near the rim. If those two guys are in there together, which I guess is possible because Big Vic can probably play power forward, they'll have a supreme rim protection. Now, who they got to guard on the other end is a question. But size, you can't teach size, and they have it in spades.
U.S. opens on Sunday against Serbia. I have no idea what these times are. Okay, it's 11:15 Eastern.
Tomorrow morning.
Yeah, is it tomorrow morning?
Yeah, 10:15.
Tomorrow, not Sunday.
Yep, DVR is set.
I
Okay.
I thought it was Sunday too. No.
Mo's times are off and my days are off. So between the two of us, though, we know that it's going to be at 10:15. But it sounds like it might be Sunday there. I guess.
I think it's
Maybe
Sunday
just
at
he's a little
10:15.
excited, as you can tell.
Yeah, you're trying to rush it here.
Yeah.
Sunday 10:15 Central
There we go.
Time. It's U.S. and Serbia. Let's see. Their next game is Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central against South Sudan, and Puerto Rico a week from tomorrow at 10:15. So I guess those are their group games. Darren,
Yeah, Puerto Rico, they got to get back against Puerto Rico a few years ago, I guess it was. And South Sudan, they were encouraged, so got to kind of snuff out any hopes against, got to let them know like this ain't the scrimmage, you know what I mean? But I saw Paul Pierce had to walk back his very disparaging remarks about South Sudan. That's the thing about basketball being a global sport where people are playing this sport all over the world now, and they're dedicating themselves to it. I don't think South Sudan has any NBA talent, but would we be surprised if they produce an NBA player in the next 10, 15 years? I don't think so.
absolutely. When you look at that group, Darren, you feel like Team USA should take care of business, do you not?
Yeah. I mean, we feel like Team USA should win the gold because that's what we do. And even if it's a close game, like the two exhibitions where LeBron just at the end just took it over, something that we're used to seeing in the NBA. When it comes down to it, just the amount of talent has always, except for that one time, proven to be enough. So now it's the question of, is the amount of talent enough to compensate with more talented, more cohesive teams? I mean, not teams that are more talented, but the talent level of the opposition has increased. We're still the number one talented collection of players, but the other teams have more talented players than they used to, and they're more cohesive. So, the question is how much of that balances out our superior talent overall. And, if we have some blowouts along the way, that'll be reassuring to prove that we're still, the top dogs. But just looking at, the amount of international players flooding into the NBA, it's clear that players from around the world are getting better, and subsequently national teams that we face are getting better too.
Off this current Team USA roster, who are the folks that you feel like they would build around going forward with LeBron gone, with Steph gone, with Durant gone for 28?
Yeah, it's it's going to take some getting used to not seeing those guys around. But, you got Jason Tatum. I guess he would be the building block to build around. We got I don't know how much you can count on Embiid, just physically what he can provide. But the young guy, Tyrese Halliburton, this could be, him and Anthony Edwards. They should have a couple, 3 Olympics in them left. So we'll always be able to reload, restock. I don't think that's an issue. There's plenty of all NBA level players to choose from, but I think it's kind of important to not always just choose the most talented guys. You got to have guys who fill roles, right? Like Drew Holiday is a good example. He's not necessarily the most talented guy, and Derek White, his teammate, they're not necessarily the most talented guys, but they are very instrumental parts for talented teams, for a championship team. So I would say it's not anything that they have to worry about at this time. The World Cup, that'd be the next international competition. I don't know which of these guys will be back for that, but international basketball is definitely a different animal than it was when the Dream Team rolled out, and even when LeBron in the 04 team took the bronze. It's gotten even more difficult since then.
Promises to be a bit of a changing of the guard in Paris for Team USA men's basketball at the Olympics. DERON SNYDER of the GRIO, we appreciate you taking some time with us to kind of talk through that, and we'll all be keeping an eye on the events over there. But thank you for joining us, and again, thanks for battling through those early difficulties, and we look forward to getting you back on again soon.
Thanks, Mo. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. When we return to the Lee Company studios for the final segment of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, we'll talk a little college football, and we'll talk a little bit about what we'll be paying attention to between now and Monday. Stay tuned after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
It's the final segment of the weekend update here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. Wade, a couple of weeks ago, we were taught about quiet being good when it came to college football and the run-up to preseason camps for these teams across the country. Well, leave it to Athens to break the silence. We talked about a couple of guys right before SEC football media days getting arrested on some moving violation type charges. Well, Ray Thomas, Georgia's receiver, was arrested early today on charges of cruelty to children and battery. Was booked at 3:20 a.m. Eastern time on those charges. Bail had not been set as of the time of this writing by the Associated Press. Mississippi State transfer was arrested in January of 23 on felony charges of false imprisonment and a misdemeanor family violence battery count. Those were later dropped. These charges brought today are also family violence offenses. Georgia's associate AD, this is a pending legal matter. We will have no further comment on it at this point. It's wild and certainly unfortunate whenever this happens, regardless of where it is. But it seems to be particularly prominent at the University of Georgia. Georgia has had 24 driving related violations over the last couple of years, I think it is. So I don't know. And we talked about how their collective has begun fining student athletes for these type transgressions, and I don't know how that works for this, but you know, I don't want to accuse Georgia of having a problem, but just looking at the numbers, it feels a little bit more pronounced there than it is in a lot of other places.
Yeah, you know, we're not producing a spreadsheet by any means, but man, I mean, the driving related issues alone, you know, which has unfortunately led to loss of life even. I mean, and this is in the last year and a half, 2 years really that
Right.
a lot of this has cropped up too. So man, it is really tough. It's not a good look for Georgia, and but also on the other end, it's very sad to say, but if they go out and they go undefeated in the regular season and make the playoff, I don't know that Georgia fans, by and large, are going to really bat too much of an eye, because it's just unfortunate that is the situation. But man, it is not a good look for the university as a whole. That's for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. A little less heavy conversation coming out of the Big Ten, where they finished up their media days, I think today. Yesterday, Nebraska's Matt Rule campaigning for 4 teams out of that league in the upcoming 12-team college football playoff. In the Big Ten, we have to go to someone else's stadium in our league 5 times and duke it out, but I think we'll still have a lot of access to the college football playoff. I think 4 teams from this league should get in every year, because this is the best league. This is the NFL of college football in my mind. I wanted to give folks a chance to absorb that. That's not to diminish any other league. The SEC is amazing. These other leagues are great, but the challenge in the Big Ten is going to be really difficult. Now, I don't know where Matt Rule gets the basis for his comparison. I mean, maybe it's his time with the Carolina Panthers that makes him feel like the Big Ten is the NFL of college football. I'm not sure, but I think that there's plenty of folks that would take exception with that characterization, and I guess most of them probably are in or around the footprint of the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, for me, this quote, and then when you say what school he's at, it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, if you're kind of that middle of the road or bottom tier now Big Ten program, this is kind of what you've got to say, because really the only shot you have is getting that 4th spot potentially out of your league. I mean, so he's, in some regards, he's kind of saying, this is my only real chance, and this is the way I got to stick up for it, is the way I'm interpreting that.
Yeah, we got to send 4 teams, because I'm probably going to be that 4th team. I'm hoping to be that 4th team behind Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State.
Oregon. I mean, USC we talked about yesterday. Now, that is going to be the wild part, and that is the only interesting thing with the Big Ten now, is the travel. Because we mentioned Nebraska, obviously, but then later, I'm just looking at USC's schedule. They go to Michigan for a conference game, and then the very next week they have, I think the Big Ten has strategically kind of put this so it's not quite as bad, but the next week they host Wisconsin, and then they're right back on the road at Minnesota. So, I mean, this is what they signed up for. So the travel situation is going to be sketchy. And kind of along those same lines, I don't know how many road games I'm really predicting Stanford or Cal to win this year in the ACC. Because, man, that's a wild situation, thinking about all that.
Yeah, I mean, at least, well, I start to say at least USC and UCLA don't have to go all the way to the East Coast, but I mean, Rutgers is in New Jersey.
Yeah, and
Penn State is, close. So I don't.
It's going to be epic. There will be a couple epic shots. The schedule, by and large, this year ended up being okay for USC and UCLA in particular. But there's going to be one cool game, whether it's next year or a couple years, where it's Oregon or it's USC or UCLA. And, I mean, they're playing, whether it's October or November, in a foot of snow in Happy Valley. And it's going to be a whiteout on the field, and it's going to be a whiteout in the stands. It'll be a night game. I mean, it'll produce some really, really cool moments, which will be extremely difficult for school. And I kind of agree with Matt Rule when he's like, hey, we wouldn't have scheduled these teams as our non-conference games, but now all of a sudden they're all of our conference games, which is crazy to think about.
Well, again, they kind of knew what they signed up for, though. So,
well, those schools did. Nebraska, Matt Rule's probably like, hey, I didn't want to play these guys. I was content being in the West and having to just maybe duke it out with Iowa every year for the chance to get pummeled in the Big Ten championship game. Now I gotta get pummeled and then don't even get to go to the championship game.
Don't even get to go to the championship game, and probably don't get to go to the playoffs either. So,
no matter how many, I mean, you need probably about a 48 team playoff before Nebraska could really probably realistically think about getting in that mix.
Yeah. As we mentioned, Olympic opening ceremonies were earlier today. It is underway. Wade, what are you watching this weekend?
Been watching already a little rugby, little soccer, but now, really getting things going. They just wrapped up. Team USA came across. It was cool how they did it. Even though it was raining tonight in Paris, by the time the U.S. came out, it's basically midnight or pitch black over there. And so I'm going to dive into a little bit of everything. We mentioned basketball coming up. That'll be exciting to watch. I usually end up watching a lot of boxing. I watch some wrestling. I kind of just try and take in some of the ones that I don't normally get to check out. I don't know that handball will be on the list this year. But we will certainly. UT Southern has got another alumni that's going to be participating again. So I'll be keeping tabs on the shooting realm of things, and I'm pumped. I'm curious. What are you going to be tapped into Olympics wise?
You guys do have an inside track on the shooting sports, don't you?
This will be, Waleska Soto. She just floated across with Team Guatemala. This is her second straight Olympics. One of her clay target teammates made it also and medaled for the U.S. back in 21. And then former volleyball coach. I wrote a great piece on that about Rose Powell, legendary volleyball coach for Martin Methodist. She received her degree from Martin Methodist, but she played in the 84 games. So Martin Methodist / UT Southern has had 3 different alumni or alumna that have all played in the Olympics now, which is kind of exciting to see.
That's really cool. Like you said, I'll probably try to check out some wrestling, probably the men's and women's basketball. I want to check on the 3-on-3 basketball. And
Jimmer Fredette, where you at, baby?
There we go. Yeah, that should be. I watched a little bit of that game last Friday night between the Team USA and the U23 team as part of the WNBA All-Star festivities. It's an exciting game, and it's really you got to be in really good shape because the ball doesn't stop. So I'm kind of looking forward to watching a little bit more of that. I'm fascinated by that. Having watched some girls rugby at the high school level, I'll think I'll probably be checking some of that out just to see how much more advanced it is on this level. So should be a lot of fun.
If you haven't watched Rugby Sevens, Rugby Sevens is where it's at, Mo. It's basically the closest thing to American football, and it is electric to watch.
And what's crazy about Rugby Sevens is they play on the same size field, right?
The same size field. I mean, that thing goes, and the matches take like 20 minutes. I mean, it is wall to wall action. It's kind of an ADHD dream, basically, in terms of the competition, because I mean, it is insane action.
Yeah. That's what we will be paying attention to. And, with the way the Braves are playing these days, it's probably good that the Olympics are coming along right now. I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously optimistic of our chances up at Citi Field this weekend. But yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So
I'll be at Titans practice tomorrow. I'll give a report Monday when we come back.
That's right. Open practice. What time is that?
Starts at gates open at 10 a.m. We should be done by 2. There's going to be Pro Shop is back open for the first time too, so you can get some new Titans merch.
There you go. And if you want to go to that, you have to have a ticket. So be sure and go to titansonline.com, get your tickets. They are free, but they are required. So do that. Thanks for joining us. We will see y'all Monday at 2:00 right back here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia from the Lee Company Studios. See you then.